Else
Realm
Hello, I'm Mark,
And I'm Ruth.
and welcome to the Else Realm Diner. It came from the swirling depths of the multiverse, a sentient cafe, a cosmic mystery, transporting its clientele through all manner of realms. No one knows where the diner came from. All we know is that it seeks interesting conversation, warm memories, and good banter.
On the menu today is chick flicks.
Chick flicks, yes, chick flicks.
Chick flicks.
And this is an interesting one because we almost started having this conversation last night, and we had to stop because out of some of the very first questions I have about chick flicks came even more questions and a fairly winding conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose one of the things that strikes me about chick flicks, this idea of chick flicks, is that I remember when I was working in Blockbuster back in the early 2000s, the early noughties. I can't remember there actually being a chick flick section. There was
Because it's insulting.
Well, and we'll come to that in a second. We'll come to that in a second. But so there were rom-coms, there was action adventure, there was period drama, there was
we had a porno section in my video shop.
Yeah.
Softcore.
Yeah.
But it was like salacious movies.
Yeah, softcore porn. There was Lord of the G-Strings, I remember being in there.
I just remember big booties too. I don't know why. I think it was because this one chap checked it out about 5 times. I was like, why?
Like, dude, just keep it. I mean,
Yeah, I was like, feels a bit used now.
Yeah. There was one that was something about Blair Witch. What was it?
We never had any good puns, like shaving Ryan's privates and stuff like that. There was some really good pornos out there. We never had any good ones. They were always like,
I'm gonna have to find it. Hang on.
It's like teens, spring break teens, barely legal stuff, but it was just it's just grim. And it was, what was funny? It was because I was obviously like 18 at the time, and these men were a lot older that were checking these out, and I was like, even at that time, I was like, surely there's a better place for you to be able to access pornography.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the internet was invented then.
Yeah.
And they were just mortifyingly embarrassed, and I was like, how desperate must your need be if
exactly I mean,
you're coming in embarrassed to this state and then having to check them out with a young girl who was clearly part of the embarrassment. And then I also remember, I know this is so off topic, but I'm just doing this. I'm filling time as you look up stuff.
No, I found I found the stuff. Go on,
is ringing these men up.
Okay.
When they had, because you had to ring them up when they didn't get them in time.
I beg your pardon?
They didn't return. OMG. No, when you didn't, when people were late returning their rentals.
Yes.
You had to do a quick call, and I was always like, oh my God, what if the partner doesn't know? What if and we were told if there was an answer machine to leave an answer machine message.
Oh my goodness.
With the title.
Wow.
Oh, so bad.
Well, I think so. So there have been a couple of, as you might expect, porno parodies apparently of the Blair Witch Project. One of them was 2015. That's a bit after my time, but that was the Bear Witch Project.
When you think about it, yeah.
But the one I think I was thinking of is called, according to IMDb, it's from the year 2000, the Bear Wench Project.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
And the description is 4 sorority girls with large breasts hike into the woods. Hike into the wood, it says, but it should be woods, with their guide, Lunk, to find out...
Lunk?
Lunk. to find the true story behind the Bear Wench. Then they show off their chests following a mangled version of the Blair Witch storyline. So there you go.
That's terrible.
It's just, it sounds really robotic. It sounds really like, yeah. Now anyway, what we're talking about? Why are we talking about softcore? No, because of Blockbuster. So yeah, so there wasn't a chick flick section.
No, but this is actually my point, right? In a society where you could have a soft porn section in a video shop,
yeah,
but not a chick flick section, that just means the chick flick section's not a relevant genre.
Well, and it does beg the question: what is a chick flick? And if you go to the font of all internet knowledge, Wikipedia, they reckon the term chick flick has not been widely used until the 1980s and 1990s.
It's offensive.
We'll come back to that in a second.
Sorry, let me just hammer this point.
Yes, it's offensive.
It is offensive.
Why are we talking about this? It has its roots in women's pictures of the early 20th century, which portray women as a victim and housewife, and later film noir of the 1940s and early 1950s, which portray the threat of a sexualized woman, i.e. a femme fatale. Some people think that Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961, is one of the classic sort of films that have the elements of a chick flick, i.e. they deal with common elements such as loneliness, obsessive materialism, and also having a happy ending. And again,
because those things are only things that affect chicks.
Apparently, yes, yeah. But also as well, I think in that sense, I would add to that for me, one of the things that I've come to understand a chick flick must have is a moment of what Mrs. Soup calls the hurdle. So you've seen these two, they sort of get over their initial distrust and misliking of each other, and then there's a just talk to each other, because like there's been a misunderstanding, because he was seen talking to a woman who happens to be his sister, but no one knows that yet. Yeah, that kind of thing. So often I think in the formula there's that, isn't there?
Well, no, I completely disagree, because in every narrative story, there is a hurdle, because otherwise there's no drama and there's not story.
True. Yeah.
So I don't know that you can say that is exclusive to this genre.
Okay,
I detest that I just called it a genre. Oh my god, this is going to be so triggering for me. I can feel the trauma happening right now.
Well, now, to its credit, the Wikipedia does go on to say that the term chick flick has generated several negative responses from modern feminist communities. Most criticisms of the genre concentrate on the negative consequences that arise from gendering certain interests, in this case, film, and what the film contains. Author of the Chick Flick Paradox, derogatory ? Feminine ? Or both ? Natalia Thompson states that chick flicks are an attempt to lump together an entire gender's interests into one genre.
Yeah.
And also, there's also as well. Sorry, in on top of that, there's also the idea that actually the films represent a series of talking sociologically here, microaggressions, i.e., reinforcing a little bit like the way that people criticize gendered toys, reinforcing this is how you should behave, this is how you will behave, this is what we expect from you, and if you want to find,
but a man, also this is as a woman, this is what you should want, this is what should be your priorities, this is what you should be emulating, and I have to say, just not.
Is there? Well, I mean, given that we're about to talk about films that we hopefully like, should we also say that actually there's possibly, and this just occurs to me now, but in a broader context, there's often the criticism of certain types of feminism that don't accommodate more than just a white middle class, often American perspective on the world. I think actually often so-called chick flicks suffer from that. If they're in a school, definitely. They're in a private school. If they're in the city, they're working in the heart of Manhattan. Often. If they're independent women living on Rhode Island or something, they have the biggest house. So,
Oh yeah,
it's
and not
interesting.
really a job. I don't know, like like I know this isn't a movie, but like the Sex and the City thing, like I don't know how. I can't even remember. I just want to say Horseface. What's her name? Sarah Jessica Parker. Sorry,
Okay.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
I'm sorry she's listening. Apologies.
I just feel mean.
Yeah.
But
She'll write
I
a
just
review
don't
now.
think
She'll be
she'd have
like,
been able to.
"Dear Ruth."
Well, let's not get above our station. I don't think we've got that kind of platform yet because we're hoping. But I just didn't buy that she could afford her lifestyle.
No.
I just imagined her being like in debt, but then also like she's a really toxic character. But again, that was like presenting what single women looking for love was all about. It's filled with similar problems.
Yeah.
And at 18, I thought that was really, forthcoming and brilliant and moving on. And now I look at it and I'm like, it was when I was 18 because I didn't know anything.
Well, and I suppose therefore, inevitably, then it begs the question: is the term chick flick relevant anymore? Because I suppose a little bit like the term girl power, it was an accessible, what felt like an empowering moment at the time for many women that I've known, for example. But now they look back at, for example, the Spice Girls, and they go, yeah, but actually, what you were doing is you were prescribing a series of ways of being. You can be sporty, you can be slick, you can strongly hint that you're paid for your nighttime liaisons, and that's okay, as it were. That was part of the message. You can be all of these things. But also at the same time, it was very prescriptive. It was a case of this is what girl power looks like, as opposed to being an engineer, for example, or a physicist.
Yeah, but yeah, I think in a sense like chick flicks are limited, but I think that when you put that name onto a movie, you're actually degrading the value of that movie because there are plenty of movies that would fall potentially under that banner of being a chick flick in some people's eyes.
Well, do
you
you know what's interesting? If you look at the top 10 list of chick flicks on IMDb, I would say a lot of them I wouldn't think of as being chick flicks. In fact, if you look at the top 15, do you want me to go through them?
Yeah.
Shall we see if you agree? So, number one, I haven't seen this one. It's called A Walk to Remember, 2002.
Yep, I've seen it.
Do you think that's a chick flick?
I would say it's a romance.
Okay. Number two, now this is one that's on my list, but you didn't necessarily think of as a chick flick. Dirty Dancing, 1987.
Yeah, I don't think that's a chick flick. I just think that is a movie. I mean, I think it's about class.
Yeah.
And and having relationships in different class. And
Crucially, it was directed by a woman as well.
No, but it's got a woman protagonist.
Yeah, when they're what
and then suddenly it's like, oh, that's only for women, but there's actually a lot in that movie.
Yeah, it's a story. It's a story with a woman's perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, it does deal with things like
abortion,
doesn't it? So, but I mean, I think the fact that it has got dramatic things in it like abortion and class divide and prejudice and stuff makes it elevates it from being just a chick flick. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to say this about all of them.
I know. Number three, Love Actually, 2003.
I despise that film, but I would also put it in the classic. It's a rom-com.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of what we think of the film,
or some people would classify it as a Christmas movie, wouldn't they?
Yeah, Christmas rom-com, I'd say. Pretty Woman.
So again, I don't. I mean, it's a. I mean, it's a modern day interpretation of a fairy tale, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Number five, The Notebook, 2004. Ryan Gosling.
Well, that's just Rachel a McAdams. Romance.
Yeah,
it's just a romance.
Number six, While You Were Sleeping, 1995.
Oh, that's so toxic.
Yeah.
rom-com again.
Yeah, you're not going to like number 8, but we'll get there in a second. Number 7, Notting Hill, 1999.
Yeah, again, it's just a romance, isn't it?
Well, it's a romance, but also I'd say it's a novelty piece in so much as it was really exciting. I remember at the time when it was being marketed. This is the end of the 20th century, all that kind of thing. Having a big movie being filmed in London like that was like,
oh yeah.
People were like, so I think possibly for an American audience, it's an exotic movie. Maybe. Yeah, it's a bit different.
I think they did do the twist on that as well. They didn't they as well, because it was a famous woman.
Yeah.
Getting with a layperson man. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Hugh Grant is a layperson man, but normally that happens the other way around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, and also as well, she got to comment in a very real way, I think, on the perils of being in the public eye. In that way. So that was an interesting one. But again, is it a chick flick, or is it just one with a woman's perspective?
Yeah, it's just a romance.
Number 8, 1997. Can you guess? 1997.
No.
Biggest movie of all time.
Biggest movie of
Titanic.
Titanic.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yep.
What the hell? It's a bloody historical drama. What are they talking about?
Yeah. Number 9, I think this probably fits. 1999, Cruel Intentions. It's
again, I don't think that's a chick flick, and also that's a modern that's like a retelling of a historical novel. Yeah. So I mean,
and also one of your favorite films. Apparently, there's a new version coming out soon.
Excuse me, let's just clarify. Yep. Cruel Intentions is not one of my favorite films.
No.
Dangerous Liaisons, which is the period piece based on the same material, is one of my favorite films. Let's not get that confused. No, I do like Cruel Intentions. I think it's fun.
But there's a new version coming out soon. Number 10.
I know, that's very exciting.
Number 10 in the top 10, and we'll go up to 15 because I think the next 5 are interesting. Number 10, Grease, 1978.
It's just a musical.
Yeah, it's a musical. Number 11, this is weird. 2002, About a Boy.
Oh, I love that movie. And there's no there's hardly the main people. No.
Yeah.
It's just a comedy drama.
And it's the issue that it deals with family dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, that's so sexist.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So sexist.
Number 12, Enchanted.
Oh no, I like that film. But again, it's a modern day telling of a fairy tale, isn't it? It's like she's a princess in New York, and when she sings, all the rats come out and dance for her.
Yeah. But again, no. But in that sense, does that make the animated Snow White a chick flick?
Well, no, but this is what I'm saying. I think all of these movies that we're looking at under this banner actually fall into a different category.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah. But no, I mean, again, I think that's a modern interpretation of and it's kind of parodying things like Snow White when she sings and all the animals come out of the forest, and kind of modernizing it, isn't it? And kind of making a contemporary kind of comment on what that is.
Yeah. This is weird. Number 19, Look Who's Talking.
Oh God. That's because it's got a baby that talks in it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, women are going to be so excited about that.
I don't know.
Who doesn't like a comedy voiceover by Bruce Willis?
Yeah. And then number 17 was 50 Shades of Grey. We're not going to go all the way through this list, but
I thought we were going to do 15 and you went 17 and 19.
No, because the other ones were a bit obscure. I mean, there's Hairspray, the movie, Jack and Sarah, Save the Last Dance, Sleeping with the Enemy, But the point being, though, I think one of the reasons why I thought it might be interesting to look at that list is that as lots of different places highlight, actually defining a so-called chick flick is not well, actually, someone said here on the wiki article, it's more of an art than a science. There's no exact definition, and I would say,
do you know what I think says is the most chick flick of all time?
Yeah,
he's just not that into you. I mean, that film should be put in its grave along with the title chick flick.
Okay, interesting.
Vomitus Maximus, horrible movie. Sorry.
But yeah, and yet, actually, and this is what I'm really interested in here in our conversation today, is that it's clear that I think I've got a lot over the years out of so-called chick flicks. I really enjoy them, often, not all of them, and there are some that for example, Mrs. Soup. There's one that she has in her collection, or in our shared collection, that she just refused. She doesn't even want to watch it anymore, I think. But she doesn't want. She never lets me watch it because she's like,
what is it?
It's so bad. It's is it Tucker? Someone Must Die.
I've never even heard of it.
Let me just check. Tucker Must Die. John Tucker Must Die.
Okay, right.
2006.
Yeah, sounds stupid.
Although, again, female director Betty Thomas. That's quite that's cool. But yeah. So there are.
But again, is that a problem? Are these things directed by female directors because that's the only material they were allowed to direct?
Well, actually, lots of them aren't. I mean, actually, sorry. Let me just take a look at. It was my mistake. Sorry, Dirty Dancing wasn't directed by a woman. It was directed by a man called Emil Ardolino. Sorry,
it was definitely written by a woman, though.
Yeah, it was written by a woman. That's what I was getting at, and actually also written by a woman who really had to shop the story around because people were like, "Oh, who cares?"
Yeah, nobody wanted to do it. They were like, "Nobody's going to want to watch this," and
exactly.
It's actually a really good movie.
But the reason why I point out though that Betty is a female director is actually number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, all 10 of the top 10 are directed by men on that list of the so-called chick flicks. And so actually defining what they are is difficult. But the ones where I go, ooh, what is this? Or someone has recommended it to me. More often than not, it's been my amazing wife. The people recommending it to me often they say, now you might not want to watch this, because you're a man, but it's worth watching. So it's almost like people they feel the need to sort of to couch these in an apology.
But that's my problem actually, is because you're sort of saying that because they're like designed for women that they somehow don't have anything to offer a wider audience, but also that they should be liked by women.
Well, and but the implication being they should not be liked by men.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I was trying to make that about that they shouldn't be liked by a wider male audience.
Yeah.
Maybe I should. Yeah.
Yeah. But and yet though they've been instructive. Sometimes I go back to what appears to be chick flick genre stuff, again and again just because I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff that would fall into that genre that I have liked and well, again, I'm calling it a genre, and I don't think it should be a genre, but there's lots of stuff within that realm that I have liked and enjoyed.
What do you want to call it? If we're not going to call it a genre, like is it label? Maybe that label.
Yeah, maybe a label is a better way of phrasing it.
Okay.
Yeah. But there are lots of things under that label that I absolutely like. And some of them are, fun, maybe not very serious, and don't really have like a big, like 10 Things I Hate About You is a lovely film.
Yeah.
It's not, a grandiose film. It's just a nice little story. I mean, it's a little bit messed up. as so many of these things are, but I think that's a thing with rom-coms actually. Quite a lot of toxicity comes out of a rom-com because you need a drama there, so there needs to be a mistake, so that doesn't necessarily happen with a nice healthy relationship.
No,
but there are levels of toxicity. But yeah, I mean, I quite like 10 Things I Hate About You. I think it's kind of a sweet little
well
story.
Actually, and so I have a list of chick flicks that I sent your way. At the top of my list is because I went through in alphabetical order with numbers at the beginning. 10 Things I Hate About You is right there at the top, and this is what I mean by instructive, is that it sort of taught me watching it an awful lot about well, actually, about the fact that that different families are actually they actually have their own different struggles and problems and issues and intergenerational
Mm.
frustrations and it was nice to see because if you think about so when I first watched that film, the alternatives that I might have been watching at the time would have been things like the Transformers animated movie or an action film or I don't know, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves or something, stuff that wasn't really going into people's homes and observing them. And the thing is, the dad is ridiculous in that film. He's
Yeah, he is. But again, it's very funny, isn't it? Because
yeah
he works with teenage pregnancy
yeah
people, and he like is terrified that his daughters are going to become teenage parents. So he
yeah
makes them wear like the baby belly, doesn't he? Every time
yeah
they go out on dates and stuff, he
yeah
goes, "You need to put the belly on," and they're like, "No," because this has clearly happened a lot,
yeah yeah.
you know,
So
and
there's,
so
there's that sort of stuff, but also as well, um, uh, I don't know if this is going to sound weird, but it made it. I recognized in that film a version of a likable masculinity that wasn't a jock and that wasn't a
yeah,
um,
that's what's he called? Gordon Hewitt? What's he? No, that can't be his name.
Gordon Love
What's the
Hewitt.
guy? What's his name? The guy
Oh,
that plays like Robin
he's in
in
Inception, isn't he?
yeah. What's his name?
I'll just,
He's
I'll
in
just,
everything. It's a three-part name.
blah 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 blah. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes,
Yeah.
I wasn't that far off.
No, no, no. Yeah, I thought he was a good, but also actually,
Heath
Heath
Ledger's
Ledger.
not. I mean, I don't know. He's like a bad boy musician. I don't think that. I mean, that's
No, but actually,
another.
he's nicer than he
Oh yeah,
portrays
he's very
himself.
much nicer.
And then,
He's
but
much
also
nicer
on
than
top
his
of that, there's
movies,
a
isn't he?
slight element of like by being in love with her, he becomes a better person, or that kind of thing.
Ugh.
And and
Sorry.
you know what? This is what I love about our dynamic is that I think I have some sort of stereotypical female emotional tendencies that you don't have, and you have some stereotypical male tendencies that I don't necessarily have, and therefore we kind of meet in the middle and mesh quite nicely on these because actually yes, I'm a sucker for that. I am a sucker for the romance stuff. I'm a sucker for the
No,
fact that in that movie there's that sort of like, what, you were being paid to be with me, and it's like, no, it doesn't matter. I was taking his money and I wanted to be with you, and you're like, no. um and it,
no,
but
I right. Listen,
yeah
I liked the romance. I
yeah.
just when you start being like, he's a better person because he loves you, and then I'm like, eh,
Well,
bit
not no, well,
vomity.
not if he loves you, because of the love that he has for
But
her.
that still is like, can they not just be in love and just be nice people? Like, do they really have to grow each other? Does it have to be like, do we have to take it there? Can it not just be
You're
like a
right. You're
nice
right.
little?
Yes, all relationships should be completely compartmentalized, and we mustn't
But
have any effect on one another.
no, I don't mean it like that. But
No,
like,
but
it
it's
just
it's unrealistic, and it's an intense version of that, isn't it? I suppose
yeah.
within months, weeks, certainly within a year, he has altered completely because of this, and so and so. Yeah, so it squashes things down in terms of that emotional intensity. But is that, I mean, so that I'd say that's one type of chick flick, this sort of
Mm-hmm.
a relationship that unfolds and that comes about, and maybe starts off in a kind of like a dare, but eventually becomes where they apparently really genuinely appreciate each other. And then there are others where it feels as though they're written around a quirk, as though a writer has just gone, okay, right, here's the title. Let's come up with a story. So 27 Dresses, I'd say, is sort of one along those lines, where you have, I think, actually a really funny performance, and at
I'm not a
times
fan.
an entertaining movie. I've forgotten who it was that what's her name? who stars in that. Katherine Heigl as Jane. I think she actually does quite a good job of. Cause the other thing as well is that in these movies, often struggling or the ugly sister or whatever, or the serious woman, they still look like Hollywood gorgeous, don't they? So often there's this sort of weird kind of. I mean, even in Strictly Ballroom, for example.
I love Strictly Ballroom.
It's excellent, but also they have to really make Fran look spotty and whatever, don't they?
Yeah.
But actually, she's so it's almost like often I think there's an element of patronizing the audience.
Do you
into
think
thinking,
that's a chick flick? Do you?
I don't know. Oddly enough, it
Strictly
didn't.
Ballroom.
Well, oddly, it didn't make my list.
No, I mean I love that. I just think of that as a comedy.
It is comedy, but also I think it has chick flick elements.
That's literally just because the leads are female.
Well, no, but I think it's also because it's two people who learn to appreciate each other, and there's a bit, there's that sort of professional dancer versus dancing with your heart, which is an analogy
can we
for
think of
who you want to be with.
Any movies that have leading females that aren't Terminator or Alien that aren't considered chick flicks?
Is it Veronica Guerin? That's a good one.
Never seen it.
Actually, it might not be Veronica Guerin. That might be it. Hang on. I don't want to be. Kate Blanchett is in it, where she plays a.
Isn't that just called Veronica?
No, it's it might be called Veronica. No, it's called Veronica Guerin. Yeah. 2003. So she's a journalist who calls out the IRA. And
actually, yeah. There's quite a lot of dramas, isn't there? There's like Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pelican Brief. Although it has chick flick elements.
No, I think so. Okay, so I think that we're talking about what about female protagonists when there's comedy?
Bridesmaids.
That would be under the chick flick label.
No, I think they would say it's absolutely a comedy.
Well, no, I get that. But
okay, Ghostbusters. I want to put Ghostbusters 2016.
No, well, that got derided as a chick flick because all they'd done was put women in the male roles.
Well, no, well, actually, that's a complicated.
So it was a gender flip.
That's a complicated issue, actually. That one.
Yeah. So
Ghostbusters 2016 is an interesting case study where a lot of the furore that surrounded it was both driven by some angry young men. But also as well was it was mishandled marketing. For example, they actively played on not just the role of women, but actually the fact that they in the early trailers, initially they were hinting this was a direct sequel to Ghostbusters, but actually it wasn't in that same world.
No, but there's an issue with the gender flipping thing because that was being tried at the time.
But also as well, actually, it was being tried at the time, but it became they started to use it as a key marketing element when they figured that they could get a rise out of that so-called anti-feminist community. So basically, if you didn't watch it, then you're a misogynist. This kind of thing. It is what Patty Jenkins was tweeting out. It's what the director, was it Paul Feig, was tweeting out. He actually directed Bridesmaids as well, actually. So in that instance, that became almost like a like the black exploitation kind of movies. I would argue that they pushed that so hard that it was. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it was that good a film, comedy wise.
No, I didn't either. I wanted it to be good, actually.
Yeah,
but there was a little fad at that time because, like, Stephanie Meyer, who wrote Twilight, was getting a lot of criticism at the time, at that sort of period about that, and she wrote a gender flipped version of Twilight.
Okay.
That came out around the same time, and there was kind of a bit of a thing that was happening about gender flipping as that would kind of get rid of the maybe some of the inbuilt sexism or misogyny within movies. If you just gender flipped it would suddenly make it pertinent to women. And it's like, that's problematic, actually,
Well,
because
I would
it's
say,
much better to write new, more broad characters and have women characters, not gender flipped characters. Do you know what I mean? But
well, and actually, I would say in Ghostbusters, I think they lost some of uh, the the heart, the handmade quality of their existence, and also actually in that sense the sort of the botched together technology. I mean, sort of stuff, but also as well they lost that key joke that actually the Ghostbusters were meant to be essentially a bunch of schlubs who were similar to rat catchers, but they just caught ghosts.
yeah.
So all that sort of stuff, and then also how they handled the ghost special effects and so on and so forth. The film, it needs basically. I suppose what I'm saying is it needed a script. It didn't have what they were relying on was a whole series of pasted together ad lib, sort of vibing moments. And actually, what they needed was a really solid story on which to vibe.
Yeah. But I mean, I still think that leads us into a difficulty of like, because I seem to be coming to this conclusion that if you have female protagonist plus comedy, you are in the chick flick label. And if that's the case, like, that's really like worrying. So the question is, like, can you think of any movies that are comedy driven with female leads that aren't considered to be under that label of chick flick? Because I can't off the top of my head.
Uh, looking on, I'm slightly cheating here. Looking online.
No,
Uh,
I expected you would, actually.
yeah, they all appear to be chick flicks. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But then is that answering our question of like what is a chick flick, and are we saying it's something where there's a female lead with an element of comedy that maybe deals with like putting a woman's, and I mean this doesn't work for like what that boy film with Hugh Grant in and Nick.
About a boy. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work for that one, but I think in general you can say like the female leads with comedy, and it's almost as if you're labeling it as a chick flick with the female lead there because men wouldn't be interested in female characters.
So is that? Do you think those are the essential elements? Then it's not about, as some people suggest, consumerism or social climbing or or dealing with I suppose the inverse of that, dealing with your everyday economic problems and trying to have a man, this kind of thing. It's
Well, no, I
actually,
mean, I
it's
think
essentially. Do you think
there's
it?
two things
So are you
coming
saying?
together.
Are you saying it boils
Sorry.
down to comedy and woman, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I'm essentially saying I think it probably does boil down to comedy and woman, and then what you have is you then have people feeding into what they consider to be a market of female lead comedy, and then they are then adding to that issue with deciding what women want is a career, or I mean even like the Bridget Jones thing where they're slightly overweight, ha ha for her, like likes eating ice cream when they're sad, cries and sings sad ballads, drinks too much, constantly trying to self-improve and failing. And it's like, while there are some things like, but constant, and also meeting this thing of like, you're 30 and you haven't got a husband, what are you doing, Bridget? And it's like,
you're a loser.
Yeah. And it's like, it's said that it was like, on the face of it, it looks like it's challenging those ideals. But it's not, because Bridget is still actively feeling like a failure because she hasn't met that criteria. And she's not challenging society's views, is she? She's like adopting them as the label to put on herself. And she doesn't feel like she's got what she needs until she marries Darcy. or not Darcy, gets Darcy, and he likes her just the way she is, and it's like, well, and she's so lovable and adorable because she wears big pants like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose that's what I mean. Or what I was asking a little bit earlier is, do you think it's sort of patronizing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, because you're making a statement about, just over 50% of the population.
Yeah.
And like, that's not, I think if you take away the label of this is just for women, like, and just call things a comedy, it's far less insulting, because you're then not making a judgment about an entire gender. You're making a judgment about that person who falls within that category.
What's interesting though is that because you say it's just over 50% of the population, but actually, oddly enough, when I think of chick flick, I don't think of it as being marketed to that many people. In so much as you've identified, and I think it's probably true, that most movies that fall into that category or have that label assigned to them, whether or not they have another actual genre like musical or rom-com, etc., most of them are about single, as yet unmarried or unattached women.
And they have a romance element as well, don't they?
Yeah. It's one of the ones that really stands out as not being part of that category would be one like Calendar Girls, where that was, middle-aged WI members.
And there's a few movies like that, isn't there? Because there's the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel things where they have like well,
I think I think Calendar Girls fits into chick flick. I think Best Exotic Marigold Hotel is actually a whole new genre that's come about in recent years, as the sort of the boomer generation has realized they're getting older, and now there's a market for those movies. So another one would be there was one with Billy Connolly in a retirement home. Do you recall that one?
No, I don't.
Oh, let me just find that one. Billy Connolly. He's a he plays a ever so slightly charming, slightly horny young old man.
Young old man.
Young old man. He behaves like a young man, but actually he's an old man. It's called The Quartet. Yeah, I thought it was.
No, I've never seen that.
No, it's quite good. But again, it's set in quite a grand retirement home. It's about 4 performers who once toured the world together.
Oh my God, I have seen it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was completely forgettable.
It is quite forgettable, but it's also a little bit like Marigold Hotel. I think it's relatable to older people in the same way that big pants are meant to be relatable to single women. Yeah. What I mean. So I feel as though actually that's a I don't know, what would it be called, the hip hop flick? Like, the flick for if you're going to say chick flick, then I think this is a similar sort of thing happening, but
like the boomer flick.
Yeah, boomer flick or something. Yeah, people who were literally, born in the 40s, 50s, and maybe early 60s, and who have reached a time in their life where where they're having to confront their mortality and so on and so forth, and looking back and wondering what they've achieved with their lives. So therefore I feel as though actually the inverted commas chick flick is actually marketed at less than 50% of
yes,
audience.
No, I think it is. And I actually think it's marketed at younger women.
Yeah.
And maybe young, newly married women.
Yeah.
And I also think it's marketed at something you could enjoy with your mum. It's like a mother-daughter experience, or
well, I mean, possibly, but then again, if you
look at sisters or best friends.
Well, if you look at so there are movies like Trainwreck. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No,
stars Amy Schumer, the American comedian.
I hate Amy Schumer's movies.
I'm not a big fan of Amy Schumer's movies, and also not a big fan of her comedy.
Yeah, same.
But that movie is, and what I find interesting about it is that is part of, it's labeled as comedy, drama, romance on IMDb, but it also makes it into chick flick lists. But it's a space where someone has brought in, I suppose, the next step of Bridget Jones's Diary, where actually you're being shown as, because she's described here as train wreck, someone who's basically living that slightly never-ending teen university kind of lifestyle, drinking far too much, doesn't really want to settle down. Actually, oddly enough, it's actually the typical lad, but in women's form. So it's also a space where women are. See, that's interesting as well. Is it a space where women are allowed to show that they're not just waiting to get married, or is the whole point of a film like that to convince you that, okay, you can't be a train wreck forever, you need to settle down, and you just need to look hard enough and you'll find the right man for you, or woman for you?
I don't know. I mean, I've got a couple on my list here that I think would fall into the chick flick label, but wouldn't necessarily. I think they would kind of buck the trend a little bit. So I don't know if you've seen a movie called Ghost World.
No, interestingly.
Okay, so it's got Thora Birchin and Scarlett Johansson, and they are best friends, and they are it's based on a comic as well. I think maybe that might, and it has kind of a comic kind of feel to it, in the sense that there's not a clear beginning, middle, and end. There's sort of this like journey that they go on together, and that's, I would have said, kind of falls into the cat, and it's dark comedy, that as well, like it's dark. But they're not aspiring to be married. They're aspiring to move out of their house, get jobs, become independent, move out of their house, move out of home, because they're sort of that they're sort of 18ish.
Yeah.
And so they're experiencing the fact that they don't fit with the convention, in terms of like they don't want to follow the path that's been predetermined to them, and there's sort of this anti-establishment vibe going on there. And then the other one that I think kind of bucks the trend is Mermaids. Have you seen that?
No, oddly, no.
Really, with Cher?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so that I would say probably falls into the category of chick flick, in the sense it's like, I mean, Winona Ryder's the character that's the older daughter of the character in the movie there, and she sort of hates her mother, who is kind of just goes through men all the time, picks up and leaves when it goes wrong and stuff. But that's really looking at a kind of on paper dysfunctional family. I mean, they're actually a really sweet family with some troubles, like most families are, really, aren't they? And she sort of is kind of, so that's kind of a coming of age drama-y thing for women. And there's a couple of movies that, if you like, have a coming of age movie with a female protagonist, that seems to go into that category, so which again is like, it just seems derisive to me, because you don't say male coming of age movies are just for men, do you? You just call them a coming of age movie,
for example. Yeah.
Well, so there's something like, if it just because it's a woman, it's not going to appeal to men, but like, we're all people.
But that said, though, is there I mean, you're right about appeal, because again, some of these sorts of films are on my list, but a truncated list. We were trying to get to top to 10 of our own movies, and then I put more than 10. But is there in that sense, possibly within chick flickness, a healing element to this stuff that maybe other movies, other directors, other writers just aren't interested in exploring? So, for example, in Just Like Heaven, you have a healing element of someone discovering the value of their life and rediscovering love and so on and so forth out of aspects of grief, and so there's that sort of thing. In Practical Magic, you have these independent women who are shown as they're witches who.
Yeah, but that again is problematic in the sense that like these single women
have to be witches,
considered to be strange,
yeah,
ostracized from society,
yeah,
thought of as witches,
yeah,
and then actually are witches. I mean, I love that movie. It's really good fun.
yeah.
But from a feminist point of view, mildly problematic.
The problem is that I think, and again, this is where we have to be. I think we have to be a bit more discerning than that, because practical magic is, on the face of it, it has its shtick. The shtick is that they're really witches. But I think what's the healing element, the beautiful element of that story, is actually about sisters learning to see each other's point of view.
Yeah.
Two women, two girls who were brought up together, who have very different outlooks. Often this is like a younger, older sibling kind of problem. So, for example, compared to my brother, I'm much more of a warrior. I'm much more of of a planner. I'm much more concerned about. But what if have you have we got everything in place? That kind of personality. Whereas he's much more just jump in, dive in, and things fall into place for him. And that can create resentment. I've grown up with that resentment, and so in that sense, I see that in that movie. That happens also to have witches in it, and the witch stuff is actually, it's pertinent because it manifests the turmoil, especially when it comes to some of the love interest problems that Nicole Kidman's brought into their world.
Yeah.
But I think that manifestation is simply a physical metaphor for what happens in many people's real lives.
No, I think you're right in that. I think all of those things are true. I just think like the question is, could that have been done? Yeah, I just don't know that making women witches is that always the best way is kind of my question. And I know that's kind of an aside here in the sense of like, because it's not really about that is a backdrop of it. But if that's the case, it could have been maybe more inventive. But again, in that movie, there's this idea, isn't there, that the true love is going to come along. And there's a prophecy.
No, you're right. Yeah. Well, say you're right, but also you've just said I'm right. So in that sense, I think I suppose what the other thing I was trying to say was that I think even the most problematic or stereotypical chick flicks, if they're good ones, then they can be handling and dealing with other real world issues and problems and emotional stuff that just isn't given space to breathe in, and social stuff that isn't given space to breathe in other types of films.
But again, I take resentment with the label because again, I don't think that these things don't appeal to a wide audience.
Well, absolutely. But the label, I know for a fact the label puts lots of men, especially, but also lots of women off showing men, or lots of sensitive men off showing their friends these sorts of films because they think, oh, they're not going to want to watch it. But to my mind, there's only so many. It's a bit like the Michael Bay Transformers movies. There's only so much of that shit you can watch before you just go insane, like like explosions and
but again, like I think that has other issues because that's just very much marketed to men.
Yeah.
And if you look at like how Jennifer Fox, her name. How she's portrayed in those Transformers, she's highly sexualized, and like it's very much the male gaze, and it's very much like and it's like that whole movie isn't presented in a way to appeal to more people either. And it's marketed that like you will get to see lots of this sexy body.
Megan Fox,
yeah, but is it Megan Fox? Oh, because she's in Jennifer's body, right? So I'm getting
in Jennifer's body, which actually now that's what. So we'll come back to Jennifer's body in just a second. But the first Transformers movie specifically, I remember watching one of the extras for that because actually I think the first one, 2007, Michael Bay's movie, is okay, and the reason why it's okay, apart from that, I think it plays out a bit like Terminator. You don't quite know who's the
Mm-hmm.
goodie, who's the baddie, and then suddenly it's revealed to you. I think that works. All the rest of them are absolute rubbish. But in that film, I remember watching the extras on it, and Megan Fox saying that her casting process for that film was basically just a case of lift up your t-shirt, I want to see your midriff. Do you have good abs, basically? And she just went, well, yeah, there you go. And he goes, right, you're hired. And so the whole film just lingers on her butt and on her midsection. The first and second films, I think, did that a lot. And I think by the fourth, the third, yeah. So she's in the third one. By the fourth one, she
I
got fed
stopped
up of it.
watching after the first one. I think I was just like, this is not appealing to me.
No, they're not good. But Jennifer's body, actually, interestingly, apparently, I've seen it, but and it surprised me. But also, what surprised me about it was exactly what the director and the marketing team had a problem and butted heads over, was that the film was a comment on that. It was
male
actually
gaze.
on male gaze. It was deconstructing that, and
yes,
it was
absolutely was.
and also wasn't just doing it in a way that was, well, in that case, let's see the woman as a monster that's going to entrap you. It's actually much more subtle than that. But they marketed it. They marketed it along the lines of Transformers. Here's Megan Fox's body. But again, is that not where I suppose I'm trying to find ways in which so-called chick flicks actually have redemptive qualities that some filmmakers actually sneak into Hollywood.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of examples. Jennifer's body is really interesting. I'll just say a couple of points on that. Because there's a whole, like, every time it looks like in that movie you're going to get a salacious view of her.
Yeah.
There's a bit where she's coming out of the water or she's going into the water. I forget which way around it is. And just at the point where you might see, high thighs, breasts, very, low cleavage or whatever, it always cuts away.
Yeah.
Like it never delivers this I don't know
the payoff,
the money shot, but not literal money shot, and that's really interesting. And actually that movie's not that movie is very much about her and her friend, and it's and also, I mean, it's a huge commentary on the nature of virgins and the female virgin being kind of idolized because she pretends she's a virgin, so they sacrifice her, don't they, at the beginning?
Yep.
And then she's not.
No.
And you're just like,
yeah.
But again, it's like it's very, very clever, and I'm very glad that has been seen as a properly as it's been out for longer, because it wasn't received well. But the other one, which I think is like that, have you seen Promising Young Woman? I don't think you have.
No, I've heard of it though.
Yeah, so I'll just give you some. So men tend to write women revenge stories where women are somehow like they're damaged and then they become stronger.
Yeah.
So you have examples like I Spit
Girl
on Your
Interrupted.
Grave. Yeah. Girl Interrupted. What's the other, like yeah, so like women
even Kill Bill, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
As much as people praise that as showing strong women, it's actually,
well, it is literally showing a strong woman.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's showing a strong female character.
No.
Because she's actually quite characterless. But that's I mean, that's fine. I like Kill Bill, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so men tend to portray women in this fashion where they're somehow damaged by rape or violence, and they climb back up from that damage and are somehow reborn and rejuvenated by it, or maybe even improved by that damage, so that they can then go and commit revenge. And that revenge is really cathartic. And actually that's a false tale. Like damaging and hurting anybody doesn't make you better.
Doesn't heal you. Yeah.
No. And so Promising Young Woman is very interesting because it's her friend that is the victim of like a college rape. and the rape is kind of brushed aside by the friendship group because they're promising young men and they don't want to ruin their career.
Yeah.
And they're all training to be doctors and stuff, and it's like, oh, but they've got so much promise, and they've got like, you know, the females are like, well, she shouldn't have got that drunk. So there's like this, you know, internalized misogyny that some women have, and like victim shaming. The people in the university don't take it seriously, and it's kind of a backlash to that kind of culture that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff we've literally seen in court cases. Men basically are given a second chance.
Yeah, like the Brock Turner case, haven't they? Like where he was like an Olympic candidate for swimming.
Yeah.
And he was literally pulled off somebody who was passed out, and the judge gave him 6 months.
Yeah.
And he cut out in 3 months for good behavior.
Yeah.
That's just shocking. So what's interesting about that is this woman, it looks like she's going out on, I mean, spoilers, by the way, but like it looks like she's going out to kill, harm, or whatever, but she doesn't. She goes out, pretends to be drunk. And men try it on with her, and just at the point where they're going to assault her, now it doesn't get to the point where they're literally going to penetrate her, but they're going too far, if that makes sense. She suddenly drops the act of being drunk and shames them.
Right. Yes.
And so she shames them into their behavior, sort of saying, well, isn't it good that I'm not drunk? Because I can properly tell you no, and you're not, you know, and they're so shamed by it. But it's interesting because like her damage isn't glamorized. Do you know what I mean? Her damage is damage. What she's doing is she's being compelled to spend her time shaming men that's behavior is appalling and that are basically potential rapists. And then it's also interesting because at the end, and again, spoilers, she gets killed basically by the man who raped her friend.
Right.
But the directors made some interesting comments on that. So her dad or somebody that she knew, I think it was her dad, was a policeman, and he told her that it would take 4.5 minutes to strangle somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you watch this woman get strangled for 4.5 minutes, and you're there live for that time. And then when he's saying, oh my God, it was a terrible accident, blah, 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 you're like, you don't have a terrible accident like that for 4.5 minutes.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So it kind of just makes all those classic excuses that you hear just fade into nothing because you're viewing that kind of act in real time and stuff. But I mean, that's done the same thing, I think, because I mean, that one's much less subtle. That's very much in your face compared to Jennifer's Body. But it's a similar kind of thing. It's fighting those stereotypes that chick flicks are putting out there.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely, but and yet at the same time, as soon as you said chick flick again, I wanted to go back to a happier place.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that our conversation has ended up sort of validating the label by talking about how it can subvert or sneak in narratives that otherwise might not make it into, you know, onto a streaming service or onto a you know, someone's DVD collection or something. But therefore, I think actually the label chick flick, as we sort of began to sort of define, sort of subsumes various aspects to it. On the one hand, it can be about women being a bit blokish, so Bridesmaids, Trainwreck, etc. On the other hand, it can be about a quirky. Basically, it's a gimmick movie. So there's something like 27 Dresses or 50 First Dates.
Oh, I love 50 First Dates.
Well, actually, do you know what? I went through a phase of watching 50 First Dates almost every day when I was living in York. I don't know why or how it was exactly,
because
but
it's lovely. It's
it is
actually
lovely.
just a really sweet. I mean, it's a kind of creepy idea, but it's a really nice idea. Like any of these rom-commy things, when you actually look at it, you're like, if that happened in real life, I would not be happy.
Yeah,
That's not how you
because
really.
it's happening in an hour, or in an hour and a half, then you have movies that can offer character studies, so things like Julie and Julia. You have movies that could
Juno.
well, Juno, I would say, also offers not only character studies but also a little bit like Dirty Dancing, a window into stuff that happens to people in real life. People do get pregnant when they don't plan to, and then they have to make a decision as to what happens next.
And it's also not always like the flipping disaster it's presented to be in other movies, is it?
Exactly. Then you have movies that have, as I say, that social or emotional commentary through the back door, such as, for example, Practical Magic. Sweet Home Alabama, actually, I think sneaks in a little bit of north-south.
Legally
Blonde does, yeah, absolutely.
Gets rid of the blonde trope, although it's bad in this. Let's not talk about the sequel, but the first one's really good.
And so this all leads, when they say, and then, as we've just been talking about, you can have those movies that really go to dark places and that make you think about how literally women's bodies are treated in the media, and therefore how that treatment is reflected in real life, because people start to think of disposable commodities. That is a drunk woman in a bar, for example. And so this all leads me to ask the question, are chick flicks actually good things? Is it just the label that's the problem? Because you quite rightly initially respond along the lines of it's insulting, it's reductive, it's derogatory. But actually what we've been describing, what we've been talking about here, and hopefully what people listening to this have been enjoying, is the various ways in which I would say, personally, so-called chick flicks have helped my emotional and personal growth, and helped me to sort of to have ways in which I can talk to people about things that they may not have other frames of reference for. So, for example, something like Jennifer's Body, I have actually said to I won't even give a hint of who this person is, but another man in my life who had, I think, a problematic relationship with the idea of whatever he wanted from his next girlfriend. I sort of pointed at this sort of thing and said, but are you sure you're thinking along the right ways? Do you not want to get to know a person as opposed just to have a thing in your life? Are they actually good things, surprisingly?
Well, I mean, I would say the movies that we're talking about have got things to offer. And I would say that, I mean, we've discussed good examples and bad examples of movies where you've got problematic areas and non-problematic areas, and so in that sense I do think art, which movies fall into that category, have things to offer. But yeah, I think the label is the problem. I think that because of the fact that you're distilling something that has multiple layers down to a pithy word, that means that you're saying it will offer something to you or it won't offer something to you.
Yeah.
And I think that because it encompasses such a variety of different things that mainly have female protagonists in, and it's used so in such a universal terms in that regard, that is the problem.
Yeah.
So, because I don't think the movie, I mean, I do think some of the movies we've discussed are not really worth watching, but that's a different issue. Do you know what I mean? And I think some of the movies that we've been talking about, which, I mean, are standalone good movies, are ones that could offer any other human being that has emotions something. And to turn the chick flick thing on, you're saying women can have emotions, men can't have emotions. This will appeal to emotional people. This won't appeal to men because they're not emotional people. And I that's the bit where I start to have problems. It's because we're looking at something that might have complex nuance, and we're putting a derisive label on it.
Okay. Looking at what's coming up in terms of so-called chick flicks, something that I'm finding interesting is that they appear to be less and less likely to go to cinema now. They seem to be more straight to streaming. The article that I'm looking at here from the Cinemaholic actually describes the genre or the label as call it what you like, chick flick, Saturday night couch time, or time.
Yeah, but again, I think this is so. I'm interrupting, but like, I think this is because men don't want to go to the cinema to see that with other men.
Yeah.
So they'll only go with their girlfriend. And that creates a barrier to it going to cinema.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas men, I think, in the comfort of their own home, might watch it on their own.
They might do. But what I was about to say, or they also say here, so-called time killer movies as well. Basically, is how they lump them together. But actually, they've got a group of 10, but it seems to be, I would argue, possibly a slightly dying subsection of films, because actually, again, it's hard to find ones to fit into that. So there's an upcoming sequel to The Devil Wears Prada.
There was a book written about that a long time ago. There was a sequel to that written a while ago.
There's Legally Blonde 3, which I'm not sure has been released yet. Apparently it's meant to be screened in 2020. Cinderella, the live action movie. I think that's a Disney movie.
That's already been made, hasn't it?
Yeah. So this is an article, I think, from 2020.
Oh, okay.
A couple of years old. To All the Boys, Always and Forever, released in...
that's already been released on Netflix.
Wicked was coming out December 20... Again, that's a Disney movie. The Kissing Booth 2, which stars Joey King.
I know, that's what Joe King's one of my favourite young actors of the generation. Yeah, that's the first movie I saw her in, was Kissing Booth. And it's really, really bad and really, really problematic, but I actually adore it.
Bridget Jones's Diary 4.
Oh, there's no excuse.
The Barbie movie, which again, I mean, that's so. Given that we've got here.
I'm quite interested to see that, actually, because that's Margot Robbie, isn't it? And
yes,
Ryan
Gosling.
Yeah, that's right.
And then there's a Mean Girls reboot as well in the works. And I would submit that out of that list of films, not only do you have again a problematic label, everything from Barbie to Jennifer's Body can be included in this label, it seems, but also as well they're retreading very heavily trod ground, aren't they? In the form of Legally Blonde, Bridget Jones's Diary, rebooting things, so on and so forth. So I would say,
to be honest, though, I think the Barbie one might be interesting. So I've read a couple of articles about Margot Robbie's experience on that. And she was talking about one where somebody has to like smack a bum or something. Playfully, and she obviously turns around and like tells them as Barbie, like, no, but apparently they just filmed it over and over again. So it's like a bit awkward.
Interesting.
But so I think I don't think I'm going to go and watch it on its opening week or anything, but I would be interested to
and that's it. I'm not
that maybe.
I'm not saying that it won't have anything to offer. I think, as we've been saying, actually, I think chick flicks do have something to offer. So-called chick flicks. Yeah,
definitely.
But I would say that it looks as though the label continues to be applied to a variety of different types of film, and even and people who are coming up with top 10 lists, I think, are struggling to fill 10. I wouldn't. Things like Wicked and Cinderella, they're fairy tales. They're not.
But that actually has been a common theme, hasn't it? Like, because so like classic. So 10 Things I Hate About You is a retelling of a Shakespeare play, The Turning of the Shrew. Like Clueless is a retelling of Emma. Enchanted is a retelling of Snow White.
Yeah.
you're having a theme there. And Cool Intentions is a retelling of an updated thing of a like older story and stuff. So I think there's a common theme of like contemporizing, and I'm aware that's not a word, but it perfectly fits my meaning in this context. Like putting those things into a contemporary setting, and labeling it chick fodder.
So, I suppose where would you bring this to a close? I mean, what are you glad we talked about chick flicks? Is chick flick a worthy piece of a cultural touchstone? Does it actually mean anything?
Well, I mean, I think it's been an interesting discussion, and I think it's been like a good exploration in the sense of like, I think like neither of us have really kind of talked about what probably are considered the chick flicks in inverted commas, like the I don't even know what you got, like Bride Wars, Monster in Law,
My Big Fat Greek
Isaac.
Wedding.
Oh no, that's actually good. But like, yeah, there's like there's a whole lot of like really trashy movies, aren't there, that are like in that realm. And we've both talked about kind of the fact that there's like a lot of actually really good stuff to find that's difficult to recommend because of the narrative around it.
Yeah.
And I do think, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's been a worthwhile discussion in the sense it's like, I mean, it certainly made me question, like, I guess why I feel so strongly about the term chick flick.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I think it's entirely reasonable to not like, because chick sounds patronizing. Chick flick. It sounds like, here you go, this is for
it's
you.
just because it rhymes, isn't it?
Yeah, it's easy.
What about a
but
dick flick?
A dick flick.
Where like men get together and watch the football.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, and they whinge about the like ball and chain back at home who does all the washing for them.
Yeah. I suppose a note that I would end on would be that if there's anyone who's made it this far, and they probably wouldn't have made it this far if they are like this, but who's listening to this and goes, ugh, you've gone from talking about aliens and predator movies and stuff like that to talking about chick flicks. Ugh. I would remind you that that some of the best and most compelling literature is also kind of there as well. I remember, I think one of the most informative moments of my life, I guess, really, in terms of this understanding that actually art is art and it can speak to you in various ways from various places, was when we were studying Pride and Prejudice in high school.
Oh yeah, I love Pride and Prejudice. It's such a good book.
The funny thing is, like I wasn't sure what to expect when I went into it, and very quickly I found myself enjoying it. But actually, some of the most sort of blokey blokes who really wouldn't want to ever go anywhere near anything that they thought was like pink or something in that class were just utterly sucked in to the story. And our English teacher, who sorry, I just had that Eminem lyric pop into my head. My English teacher would have had sex in junior high.
Oh God.
Only problem was no, but my English teacher, she was a relatively young teacher.
I thought he said my English teacher wanted to flunk me in junior high. Thanks a lot. Next semester I'll be 35.
No, that's the clean radio edit of the song.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. They
wanted to have sex in
junior high. The only problem was my English teacher was a guy. I
Oh.
chased him with an eraser, stapled his nuts to a stack of paper or something.
Yeah,
like that.
no, I know that.
Yeah. Anyway,
I know both of them. Sorry.
So
Sideline.
Anyway,
Oops. Moving on.
So Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice really caught those guys off guard, and But what I found fascinating, though, was as much as they got to a point where they needed to know what was going to happen next, so they were going home and reading beyond the chapter that we were meant to be studying that week. These guys were finishing
probably
the story.
in secret.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, they were coming back in and they go, "Miss, this is really good," and she was a relatively young new teacher, but she was really, you could see she was having this was the effect that she intended to have on the class. More just to get these guys to drop the stereotypes. What was fascinating was that as they did not transfer that to anything else in their lives, so that they were like, "This is the only good one." And so I think that would be my encouragement for anyone who's got this far and maybe is thinking, "Oh, maybe chick flicks are worthwhile watching." There's, by definition, there's not just one good one.
There's loads.
Exactly. And they can meet you in lots of different ways. They can be funny, they can be informative, they can be scary, they can bring you to tears, they can have you wetting yourself laughing. So actually, oddly enough, I think the label is probably misapplied, but it can help you find a type of film that is hard to place. And just going back to my thought about Blockbuster, I actually can't remember really where those sorts of films were. I think they ended up just being in either their new release.
Rom-com.
Well, no. I think because rom-coms were a thing. I think they were new releases, and then they went straight into A to Z. So you had to know what you're looking for. You said to me, and then the rom-coms would go into rom-com. But something like, I mean, it's interesting because something like Jennifer's Body probably would go into horror, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a horror.
Yeah. And but
it's so good though.
Well, and that's the thing. And so ironically, I think.
But I think horror can be like derided, can't it? And that's actually just a good movie.
Yeah. And so I think that's the point. I think, and funnily enough, I think if you find a horror movie that's also called chick flick, there might be something really interesting there.
What, like I Spit on Your Grave?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Can I just tell you, that is not a chick flick under any.
No. So, chick flicks. Hopefully. I think we've come to some interesting new ideas to this conversation.
Yeah, definitely do.
Hopefully, you have as well at home. What are we examining next?
So it's 100 years since Nosferatu, the kind of silent movie about Dracula, but not about Dracula, was released. And Mark and I watched it recently. And then we watched Shadow of the Vampire, which is a movie about the making of Nosferatu. And then as sort of a triplet experience, we watched Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Bram Stoker's Dracula is what it's called.
Oh yes, it is, isn't it? But it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
But also at the same sorry, just as an aside, around about the same time, you also had Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Because those two are often paired, aren't they? As like gothic horror novels. And they definitely have that monster thing going
in terms
on.
But definitely in terms of that title format, it was a thing for a bit.
It was.
So we're gonna examine that, yeah?
Yeah. And we'll talk about that and see what happens. So yes, the multiverse calls the diner back to its swirling depths. The warm conversation and cosmic mystery must depart for now. We will materialize again, somewhere new in time and space. But for now, it's goodbye from the Else Realm Diner.
Else Realm Diner.
More than anything else in her life, she wants to see Paris.